Captain's log, August 2nd, 1724, morning. I awoke to the soft creaking of the rowboat as it rocked gently on the open sea. The morning light, pale and cold, filtered through the thinning clouds above, casting a dull glow over the horizon. My body ached from the exertion of the previous day, the battle with the Kraken, the frantic escape from the sinking Kraken's revenge, and the endless hours of rowing. But we were alive. That at least was something. David was already awake, his back to me, silently dipping the oars into the water. His face was a mask of exhaustion, though his determination hadn't faltered. He hadn't slept all night, keeping the boat moving, steering us away from the remnants of our ship's wreckage and whatever other horrors the Triangle had in store. Two-legged Sue was still asleep, her body curled awkwardly on the opposite side of the boat. Despite her sharp tongue and fearlessness, the ordeal had taken its toll on her as well. Her peg leg rested beside her, and I couldn't help but marvel at the resilience of the woman. Sue was as tough as they came, more than a match for any sailor I'd ever known. I sat up slowly, my muscles protesting, and reached for the water bottle. It was nearly empty. We hadn't had time to gather much in the way of supplies before abandoning the ship, and our provisions were running dangerously low. If we didn't find land soon, we'd be in serious trouble. "Any sign of the stars last night?" I asked, my voice rough from dehydration. David shook his head without turning to look at me. "The fog's been too thick," David continued. "I tried to keep us on course, but without the stars, it's hard to tell if we're heading in the right direction." I nodded, though I wasn't sure he saw it. The Devil's Triangle had an unsettling way of disorienting even the most experienced sailors. Without the stars to guide us, we could easily end up rowing in circles, trapped in this cursed place forever. Still, we had survived worse. And if there was one thing I knew, it was that we couldn't afford to lose hope. Not yet. "We'll keep rowing," I said, forcing some confidence into my voice. "Once the fog clears, we'll find our way out. We have to." David grunted in response, and I wasn't sure if he believed me. Hell, I wasn't even sure if I believed myself. But it didn't matter. We had no other choice but to keep going. I took the oars from him, giving him a chance to rest, though I knew sleep wouldn't come easily to any of us. The sea around us was eerily calm, the water almost unnaturally still. No wind, no waves, just an endless expanse of grey stretching out in all directions. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft splash of the oars as they dipped into the water. As I rowed, I tried to push away the memories of the previous day. The Kraken's massive tentacles tearing our ship apart, the screams of the men as they were pulled into the depths. I had lost so many good sailors, men I had served with for years. The guilt weighed heavily on me, though I knew there had been nothing I could have done. The sea was unforgiving, and the Devil's Triangle even more so. But it was the Kraken's revenge that haunted me most. That ship had been my home, my refuge, and now it was gone, lost to the depths of the sea, along with everything we had built aboard her. I could still hear the creaking of her timbers as she was dragged beneath the waves, the groaning of the hull as the Kraken's tentacles crushed her. I clenched my jaw and focused on the rhythm of the oars. There was no time for mourning. We had to survive. Midday. The sun was high overhead, though its light did little to warm us. The fog had finally lifted, revealing an endless stretch of open ocean. There was no sign of land, no sign of anything, and the sense of isolation was overwhelming. The vastness of the sea, the emptiness that surrounded us, was enough to drive a man mad if he let it. David had taken over rowing again, though he was clearly running on fumes. "Still no sign of land?" Sue asked, her voice hoarse. "Nothing. We've been rowing for hours, but it feels like we're not getting anywhere." Sue muttered something under her breath, but she didn't press the issue. Instead, she reached for the water bottle, taking a small, measured sip before passing it back to me. "We're running low on water," I said. "We'll have to ration what we have. If we don't find land soon, it won't matter." The truth of her words settled over us like a weight. The Triangle was notorious for trapping ships, for leading sailors astray until they died of thirst or madness. We had escaped the island, but we were far from out of danger. "Look!" David suddenly shouted, his voice breaking through the silence. I turned, following his gaze to the horizon. At first I saw nothing, but then, faintly, a dark shape appeared in the distance. It was small, barely a speck, but it was there. "Is that land?" Sue asked, squinting against the glare of the sun. "I don't know, but it's something." "Row faster, David. We need to reach it," I said. David didn't need to be told twice. He rowed with renewed energy, his tired arms straining as he pushed the boat toward the distant shape. As we drew closer, the shape became clearer. It wasn't land. It was a ship. My heart sank. Another wreck, no doubt. Another vessel claimed by the Triangle. But even so, it might offer supplies. Water, food, anything that could help us survive. "We'll board her and see what we can find," I said. "Get us alongside," I ordered. But the air felt wrong. Thick with the same oppressive energy we had felt back on the island. There was no sign of the crew. No bodies, nothing to suggest what had happened here. The ship was eerily quiet, its deck littered with debris. David and Sue followed, their eyes scanning the wreck for any sign of life or danger. The ship creaked under my weight, and I could feel the decay in the timbers beneath my feet. I grabbed hold of a rotting rope, hauling myself aboard. It was old. The wood blackened and splintered from years at sea, but it was still afloat, though barely. "See if you can find anything useful. Water, food, anything," as David and Sue climbed aboard. "Spread out," I said, my hand resting on the hilt of my sword. David and Sue nodded and moved off, their footsteps echoing on the empty deck. I made my way toward the captain's cabin, hoping to find something that could give us a clue as to what had happened to the crew. The door to the cabin was hanging off its hinges, and I had to push it open with some effort. Inside, the cabin was dark, the air musty with the scent of rot and decay. The furniture had been overturned, papers scattered across the floor. It looked as though the captain had left in a hurry, or had been forced to. I rifled through the papers, but most of them were illegible. The ink faded and the parchment crumbling in my hands. There was nothing here, nothing that could tell me what had happened. I was about to leave when something caught my eye, a glint of metal in the corner of the room. I crossed the cabin and bent down, brushing aside the debris to reveal a small, tarnished compass. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. The needle was spinning wildly, completely useless, but I pocketed it anyway. It was a small comfort, a reminder of home, even if it wouldn't help us here. I stepped back out onto the deck, where David and Sue were waiting. They had found a few barrels of water, though most were spoiled, and some dried food that was barely edible. "It's not much," Sue said, her face smiling, trying to stay positive. I nodded, though I could feel the weight of our situation pressing down on me. We had bought ourselves a little more time, but we were still trapped in the triangle, with no clear way out. "We'll keep moving," I said, trying to inject some confidence into my voice. "We'll find a way out of this place." David and Sue exchanged a glance, but neither of them said anything. I couldn't blame them. We had been through too much to hold on to hope blindly, but we had to keep going.